Ladies and gentlemen, Sergei Bobrovsky is back. This is the guy we used to see in 2019. He is right back at peak form, and the Florida Panthers are through to the Eastern Conference Final, defeating the Leafs 4-1. What can I say? Another huge upset. This team has now gone on and taken down the Boston Bruins, who had the regular season best record ever, and now another top 4 team in points.
What a weird series, because I thought this series should have been longer. I thought it would have went to 6 or 7 games.
For sure, yeah.
But it was a pretty short series. I thought we're going to get to Toronto later, but I thought Florida, Sergei Bobrovsky, he was playing like Vezina Bob again. He was extremely good. But yeah, the Florida Panthers had a lot of contribution scoring from all throughout the lineup, 1 to 4. And yeah.
Yeah, really looking at this team, obviously it starts with Bobrovsky, by far the MVP in this series. It wasn't even close for me. Just watching the saves this guy was making, like some of these were some high danger saves. I was really impressed with his game overall. He really had guys like Matthews and like Tavares scratching their head, wondering how the heck they were going to get one past them. And obviously Matthews didn't. But this team is a really deep team overall behind that. In the first series, we kind of saw it was a lot of Matt Tkachuk hard carrying this team. Like this guy put the whole team on his back. He's like, all right, boys, let's go. I'm going to get this done. And he just absolutely popped off. He wasn't bad in this series, but they didn't even need Matt Tkachuk to score a goal for this team to win. This team was insanely deep. They were getting contributions all over from the defensemen, from the forward group. Even guys like Nick Cousins had some key goals in this series.
Yeah, if you look at the Florida Panthers forwards, all of their forward group, they're good at playing two-way hockey. Lusterinen,
yes.
Anton Lundell, they're extremely good at playing two-way hockey. They have one of the best two-way hockey players in the world in Alexander Barkov. So, this team is primed to win. Let's not forget that this team has pretty much the exact same team as they had last season that won the President Cup trophy. The only difference is that they got Brandon Montour and they got Matthew Tkachuk, and they don't have Uyghur and Huberto. It's pretty much the same team.
Yeah, one thing I find a little funny here, and I guess we were kind of guilty of it too, because we didn't really expect these guys to win this series as much, or last series per se. Obviously, it was Boston. But this team is still so much of the same as it was last year when they had like 120-something points in the regular season. This is not a bad team. This is not your average wild card 2 team at all. This is just a team that struggled to get out of the gate early, really fast. They were low at like December, where they were not anywhere near the playoffs. And then they really turned it on at the end. And you know what? Those teams that really come into the playoffs hot, like Florida did, who had to scrap their way through it, they tend to have runs like this. And Florida's no different here. And I really think that the next series they're in against Carolina, we'll do a preview for that later, but it should be a great series.
Oh, it's going to be a fantastic series. And on top of that, it makes a big difference, this team having an elite offensive defenseman in Brandon Montour, who can just jump up the rush like that. Especially that first game against Toronto, where he just went in on that 2-on-1. Oh my goodness.
He's night and day from past 2-3 years. I don't know who this guy is, but Montour came out of nowhere and just started to be absolutely elite this year. His slap shot, man, it scares me. I feel bad for the goalies. Like watching this guy wind up, like it's a heck of a good slap shot from the point, and it really makes it hard for these goalies, especially if they have traffic in front, to kind of judge where this puck's going to go. Yeah, we got to talk about Toronto here. Okay, so this is like probably the biggest topic right now in the last couple of days, all over YouTube, all over Sportsnet, everywhere you look, right? This team's getting flamed pretty hard. And you know what? Yes, there's reason to flame this team. They were a heavy favorite in this series, and they lost in 5 games, which is pretty brutal. But I will have to say, I don't actually flame them as hard as some of these other people, critics out there kind of bashing them, because I thought Toronto played very well in this series, to be completely honest. I thought it came down a lot to goalie gap. Bobrovsky just simply was a monster, and he's just really good. But Toronto was getting a lot of chances. They were competing pretty hard, especially in game 4 and 5. I will kind of critique their games 1 through 3. They weren't very good. They were kind of lackluster in energy, and they really didn't bring it as much. But I thought game 4 and 5, they really turned it up.
That's the problem, I thought. 4 and 5. It's too late.
Yeah, it's already over. So it doesn't even matter how well they play. They're down 3-0.
There's a big question I have around Toronto Maple Leafs. Unlike Scott, I have big criticism of this team. I don't like any of their players in the core. That includes Marner. I don't think these players are playoff players. And every time... Yeah, and we saw in the previous Boston series and the Tampa Bay series last year, and this year and against Florida Panthers, when the physicality of these teams ramp up, Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett hitting all these guys, they can't respond to that. Like, you got Matthews, who just looks like invisible out there.
Yeah,
right?
I got to rag on Austin Matthews, going on a little bit of a rant here. This is a guy who I think of all the core four really, really let me down the most. This guy was pretty brutal in my personal opinion. I mean, I know a lot of Leafs fans, they really stand up for this guy over all the others every time for some reason. But like in games 1 through 4, this guy was pretty much invisible. He kind of got a lot of shots on net and like a little more active in the like elimination game 5. But I mean, really, this is a former 60 goal scorer, known to have one of the best shots, if not the best shot in the entire league. And he didn't score a single goal in this series. Not only was he not scoring goals, he wasn't really generating great scoring opportunities. He had a couple one-timers that could have gone in, maybe. He had the one post, I will say, early in game 3, where he started the game 30 seconds in and rang the post, which was a pretty good shot. But I mean, aside from that, there was a lot of times I thought this guy was absolutely invisible.
And look at Nylander. He didn't play He didn't play good at all until games 4. Game 4 is where he decided he wanted to play hockey again, right?
Yeah, I was actually going to rip on him, but then he actually was probably the best offensive Leaf in games 4 and 5. I thought, at least. He really kind of stood up. But yeah, games 1 through 3, he was non-existent as well. And Tavares, same thing, really. I don't know. I think overall, that contract they handed Tavares for like $11 million, I think that's going to be one of their biggest regrets, because that really, really hurt them. No trade clause. They can't just decide, okay, we don't need this guy around. He doesn't necessarily seem like the best captain choice on this team overall. A guy I actually want to call out that probably should have been captain was by far the absolute best Leaf, no question, like bar none, and that's Morgan Rielly. The one Leaf I can say honestly that stood out and absolutely played amazing every single game of this playoffs. Morgan Rielly did nothing wrong, and I feel so bad that he had to take the L here because the offense wasn't doing their job. But this guy in his own zone, the best I've ever seen offensively. He was jumping up on the rush. He was making like these plays where he was going in. I mean, he had the one goal disallowed in game 5, which we could debate whether it was good or not. I kind of thought it was, but I get the ruling that the whistle did go. So it's kind of unfortunate, or at least they said the whistle went. They said the play was dead. But overall, this kid just really like had a different energy about him this playoffs. And I just think he was like Norris level play.
Yeah, I don't know. I know Sergei Bobrovsky played really well, and don't get me wrong, he played extremely well. But it doesn't even matter if he's not Vasilevsky of last year. No offense, he's good, but he's not Vasilevsky of last year in the playoffs. This guy is a beatable goaltender, and the fact that I've seen so many times that these big four cannot take over a game like that. I think there's a lot of questions that needs to be asked about the internal core of this organization. I don't think any of these four players, Marner, Matthews, Tavares, and Nylander, I don't think any of these guys have that determination to win hockey games in the playoffs. Because being good in the regular season is one thing, but being good in the playoffs, none of these four players have proven that they've been great in the playoffs.
I definitely don't want to hear one thing from anyone again, and this has been going around the last 2 or 3 years. I don't want to hear Austin Matthews' name mentioned in the same sentence as guys like Nate McKinnon, Nikita Kucherov, and Connor McDavid. Everyone's been talking about this guy as a top 5 player in the league.
He's not.
He is a great scorer. I will give the guy credit.
Yeah.
He is a great scorer, fantastic player, but he is not in that echelon.
You
cannot put him up with guys like, if you look at guys like Nate McKinnon and Connor, when their team is down, no matter what, when they need it, they're end-to-end just generating their own chance, putting in all the heart. Nikita Kucherov, 3 times he led the playoffs in points. Insane playoff player, like so good. You just can't put Matthews in that conversation. He is a great player, and no disrespect, he's a solid goal scorer, but you can't put him up there anymore.
You know what? I kind of ripped on Mitch Marner a little bit there, but to be honest, he's the driver of this team, in my opinion. I think he's the guy that makes all the things happen, right?
And I mean, as much as like people rip on him for not scoring, he is the playmaker.
He is the playmaker, and all of Matthews does is just find a spot and just try to shoot. That's all he does. He was so invisible in games 1 to 4. It was ridiculous. And this guy wants $15 million in his next contract. Can you believe that?
No, I know we're ripping on him a lot, but honestly, it's kind of deserved if you think about performance. I've even seen Leafs fans, like I've been going around the internet and checking, and every year I swear it's the same thing. No offense if you're a Leaf fan, I know not all of you are like this, but they'll be like, oh, get Mitch out, he's too small, can't play in the playoffs. Get Nylander out, too small, can't play in the playoffs. But no one ever holds Austin Matthews accountable, and it kind of drives me nuts.
And I want to give this GM some kudos, though, because in the trade deadline, he made a lot of moves.
It's not his fault at all.
And quite honestly, the moves that he brought in, Ryan O'Reilly, Jake McCabe. These guys have been great. Lafferty, Achari. These guys have been great. If you watch these guys, these were not these players were not the reason why they didn't play. In fact, these 4 players were the reason why they were able to get past the first round, in my opinion, because they were really good. And it's great that they got a guy like Ryan O'Reilly and Noah Achari. It's great that they have the bottom, like it solidified the whole team. It's just the top 4 guys wasn't able to, especially Matthews, wasn't able to do anything.
No, the big 4, all of them, I will say all of them needed to be better, especially against Florida. But yeah, I lean towards Matthews needing to specifically be better. And honestly, John Tavares. I thought Mitch and Willie, they really stepped up a little bit near the end, especially in games 4 or 5. They definitely had more heart in those games, whether it was Mitch on the penalty kill, like willing to do anything to stop them from getting another goal, or Nylander kind of going coast to coast trying to make a play happen. But let's play a little game here, I think, before we wrap this up. Let's talk about what you would do and what you would think will happen, both situations, for this team to move on to the next stage. So obviously, in my mind, you can't keep it the exact same. Something's got to change. So for me personally, I think Kyle Dubas did a great job and he is a great GM, and I would definitely extend him. I would definitely sign him to a few more years. I don't think anything he did was wrong. Personally, I thought he's great. I would personally fire the coach. I would get rid of Sheldon Keefe. I personally didn't find him as a very good coach. I thought Paul Maurice outcoached the crap out of him. I thought John Cooper did too. It just so happens they were a little bit better than Tampa. But that's just because Tampa was kind of banged up a little bit, honestly. I don't think this guy's a coach that's going to win a Stanley Cup. But I think what's going to happen is William Nylander is going to be traded in the offseason, because I know they can't keep this core 4 anymore. It's just not working for them. And he has the most trade value at a 6.9 for 1 more year, and they won't be able to afford him.
Yeah, those are good points. I mean, Sheldon Keefe have never impressed me. To be honest, I thought their best coach that they had in the recent years was Mike Babcock, quite honestly. But I know the players didn't like playing for him. A little too harsh.
You need a middle ground.
Yeah, you need a middle ground.
Yeah.
But first of all, I don't think Samsonov's the right goalie for this team. We didn't really touch on this very much, but I honestly he had a pretty decent regular season, but I knew
very good. Just not
knew when the playoffs came, this guy I had a lot of doubts, a lot of questions. Same with Georgiev, to be honest with you. Both of these goaltender, I was not sure about these 2 goaltender, but Georgiev, he was okay. He was okay, but I want to see next year if he can replicate this type of success for him. But going back to Samsonov, I never seen him being consistently good, especially when he was playing for the Capitals. So, and he wasn't very good in the playoffs. He was like 87, 88 save percentage.
Yeah, he was pretty rough. Giving up a lot of rebounds. That was what I noticed. His rebounds were not under control at all. Kind of cost them a lot.
But back to your question. I think they got to look into moving Austin Matthews. Like, he's got 1 more year left on that contract, $11.6 million. I think they got to look into moving it.
Real question. First off, I don't think for a second they want to move him or will move him. But do you think he wants to be there is the real question.
No.
He didn't play like he wants to be there.
I don't think he wants to be in Toronto anymore.
I don't know, man. He doesn't look like he has the same heart for it.
The problem with Toronto, playing in a city like Toronto, is has the most media. It has the most pressure of any city in the NHL. It takes a very special player to play in that market.
It didn't feel like he dealt with that pressure.
And I just don't feel like Austin Matthews is the right player for that team.
No, I agree. I like, he's obviously a phenomenal goal scorer. Not taking that away. He improved his 2-way game a lot this year in the regular season, definitely. But I just don't know if he wants to be here. I mean, like, there's all the rumors in the world about him going to a U.S. market or maybe back home to Arizona potentially in free agency. But I don't know. He's got to really show it a little bit more that he wants to be in Toronto.
I think William Nylander will be gone. I think you're right, because he's got a very cap-friendly contract. He's got 2 years, I believe, left on that contract.
And he's kind of always been the scapegoat.
And the problem with William Nylander, he played good in games 4 and 5, but the problem is it's a little too late. He was terrible in games 1 and 3.
Oh, before that, he played like 6 bad games in a row.
Games 1 and 3, he didn't show up until like last 10 minutes of third period. And that's way too late.
And against the last couple games of Tampa, he was trash.
Yeah, he was terrible. Like, the thing is, you need if you're paying superstar money like $11 million to these guys, like, look at Leon Draisaitl, what he's doing at 8.5. Like, he's taking over games himself. Mm-hmm. That's what you need superstars to do in the playoffs. And the problem is, I'll take Marner out because I think he's pretty good. But the thing is, like, Austin Matthews, Tavares, these guys just didn't do enough.
No,
at that contract.
Like, obviously, I'm biased. Mitch Marner's like my favorite player in the world, but I thought he wasn't perfect. He made some dumb turnovers that I thought were really bad passes that cost the team a lot of times. but I thought he was a lot more improved from past playoff years where he had taken a step forward. I mean, you can see it in the numbers, 14 points in 11 games. And not just that, he was +7, like pretty good plus minus in the playoffs. It's not like he was being a defensive liability, which is the big reason why I think Nylander is going to be the casualty. He has not been known for having good play in his own zone at all.
I thought Mitch Marner played pretty good. Not so much in this series, but
No, not as good in this
overall in the
series.
playoffs, I think he was skating. You know what? At least he's skating. I didn't see Austin Matthews do much of skating, to be honest with you.
And I will say, I know
Yeah.
this guy is like the same size as Hohen here,
Yeah.
but he was throwing the body. I mean, the guy
He
had...
throws body.
he had-
It
he
looks
had-
like he's trying.
He had 12.
Right?
He had like 13 hits, 12 hits in his last 2 games. I mean, he's trying. I know
Yeah.
he doesn't weigh anything more than a marshmallow,
Yeah.
but he is trying to throw the body.
Yeah, he's at least trying. I see him skating. That's a big difference. I think he needs to improve his shooting personally.
Decision making too. Yeah,
Decision-
I mean, he's been
yeah.
trying to work on that shot for years.
Decision making, but he's a great playmaker. I think you need to keep that guy on the team. You need one superstar at least. If I am going to keep one of them, that's probably the one I'm going to keep. I think Tavares can go. I think Austin Matthews can go.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting. Let us know in the comments below if you're a Toronto fan. I feel bad for you guys because I wanted you guys to do good. I was hoping you guys made it to the Final Four this year. Honestly, I was cheering for you. But let us know in the comments below what you would do if you were the GM of this team and how you would move forward to get better for next year. And until next time, take care and have a great day.
Take care, guys. Bye.